Hello, folks. Welcome to today's podcast. The title for this podcast is Coaching for Gold. A coach is an instrumental part of every winning team. At the top level, coaching staffs are led by head coaches who are basically top managers. Today we are joined by two pro coaches to talk about this topic. Let me start by introducing my co-host, Tom Johnson. Tom is born in Canada and played for the national team of his country. Afterwards, he played in Europe. He's been coaching in Belgium at the top level for men's and women's. Currently, he's the head coach of Athena's Lleun. He sees himself as a lifelong student of the game. He's huge on individual skill development, as we see every time we have him in the off-season practices. Now, moving on to our next guest. Well, not every day you get a chance to listen, let alone talk to the world champion. Coach Gordie Herbert is the coach of the German national team who won the world championship in the summer. He was an assistant coach for NBA teams like the Raptors and the Nets. In 2016, he won the FIBA Euro Cup. I am Geert Vanhove, president of Off-Season Basketball. I hope you all have an equal amount of fun listening to it than we had making it. Hi Tom, hi Gordie. Fantastic to have you on the show today.
That's great.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah. Well, for me, first, Gordie, it's amazing how time flies by. I guess the last time we were, had the opportunity and privilege to work with you was, I guess it's almost approaching 14 years now in Frankfurt. So it's going to be, for me, it's going to be interesting to, go through some reflections and really get into, your philosophy and your methodology and the idea of being a teacher first and a coach second. So I think what we'll start is just the journey to gold. So, and I think we're going to look at this, and I'm going to ask you some questions in a sort of a 3-year cycle and process, and seeing your reaction and the image of you sitting in, I'm not sure where you were. It was either in the locker room or in the foyer, and seeing you so emotional there, it made me emotional because I know how hard you work and what must have gone in to the culmination of that emotion and bringing that emotion out of you. So, nothing great was accomplished without an element of struggle. So, if we look at the first year of that journey of 3 years, so there's a beginning, middle, and end. Can you talk to me a little bit about like the criteria upon getting the position of how you were recruiting and the recruiting criteria for your players?
No, I took the job in 2021, and when I had the press conference, it was my one time to speak to all the press. And for me, a huge part of creating a culture is giving a vision. So the vision we gave was we wanted to medal 3 years in a row. And the second thing was we needed a 3-year commitment from the players. With the national team, because you have such a short time for preparation, it's very important that you have some continuity year after year. You have a core group. And, when I said the vision of medal three years in a row, everybody kind of laughed because I think Germany hasn't medaled for something like 20 years. But to a certain extent, I wasn't talking to the public. I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the players. I had months to get the players to believe in this. And to me, a vision is not where you are, not where you were, but where you're going. And so that was the vision I gave to the players. And then after that, I met with about 30 to 40 players individually, eye to eye. I met with coaching staff. I met with support staff. I met with coaches in the BBL, just to really develop relationships. Coaching the national team is much different than coaching a club team. It's really, you're only going to have a short preseason. You really have to have a relationship before you even start. So that's kind of the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. And so with the vision, you to a certain extent, you talk with the end in mind. Right. And and then you go forward.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so
So in looking at like that first year and you know, so the situation behind the scenes on the court with the players, so what evaluations and reflections did you have leading into the second year? And what did you learn from the players and from the overall situation about your team?
no, I really believe in adversity, and you know, with adversity, you can do a bunch of different things. But the main thing is you look in you look in the mirror, you take ownership of it, you embrace it, you lay ground.
Right, right, right.
No, my first year coaching, we lost in the windows to Estonia at home, and you know, after that, I think we won 7 or 8 in a row. A huge thing for it, how we won the World Cup, was losing the game to Spain in the semifinals of Eurobasket 22. I don't think we would have won the World Cup if we would have not lost that game. I think we learned a lot from that game. We embraced it, and that really helped us going forward in the World Cup after beating United States in the semifinals. That we did not have a letdown, and we went forward. So, I mean, we've had some adversity along the way with games, with players, but adversity builds, and nobody gets where you're going to get to without adversity.
So it's like a stepping stone. The adversity, you use it as a fuel to get better.
Well, it gives you a chance to get better. It depends how you embrace adversity.
Right.
You know, do you do nothing? Mm-hmm. Do you look out the window and blame others and make excuses? Or do you embrace it and take ownership of it? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's up to us how we do it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so many people make excuses and they blame others. And so, you know, they're stuck, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And for me, I use the term an escalator coming down. You're walking up an escalator, there's adversity. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Are you going to keep walking and keep fighting through it? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to stop and blame others and you end up going down to the bottom?
Mm-hmm. 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 So in this way, you can learn more, or you do learn more when you lose.
Absolutely. We learn a lot more from winning. Hides stuff. Losing is a learning. It gives us a chance to get better, an opportunity to get better.
And is this something you look for when you screen your players on how they react at this adversity thing?
No, you want players who are resilient, who, you know, with adversity, you find out a lot about people you're working with. Are they on the fence? Are they with you? Or are they halfway out the door? Mm-hmm. And, you know, you want people that are resilient. And to me, adversity, yes, it helps you, you know, it gives you a chance to get better. You got to embrace it, but also finds a lot about the people you're working with, the players you're working with. So for me, adversity is a huge part of any growth of any human being to begin with in any team.
Right, right. No, that's excellent. So Gordie, so now we'll go through into the final year of that cycle, you know, leading up to the World Championships and obviously clearly peaking at the right moment. So now when we look at your overall themes and let's say pillars in terms of your system offensively and defensively, you know, did those pillars that you have and allow you to expand? I know you like things in threes and maybe they're fours or maybe they're twos, but and allow you to expand on that yourself. But did your pillars offensively and defensively change over the course of those first 2 years in that cycle leading into the third year?
Yeah, I mean, this cycle really was, the World Cup was our second year together. Mm-hmm. The third year is going into the Olympics. Right. So right. We're in year 2 of a 3-year commitment. You know, you have your philosophy, offense and defense, and then you have to adjust it to the strengths of your players. Right. And so really we have certain things we do that are black and white, they're non-negotiable, and there's certain things we have to really adjust to our players' strengths. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our stuff is around Schroeder and Wagner, mm-hmm. because mm-hmm. they're so to speak, there are racehorses, mm-hmm. and mm-hmm. but and true, we do everything in threes. To me, when you get it to fours and fives, we teach a lot of stuff, we talk a lot, and you talk about 5, 6 things. Nobody remembers what you're talking about. Three is the emphasis, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So only 3 bullet points to keep the vision on that, the focus on that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you go to 5, 6 things, if I told you 5, 6 musical bands that I liked, or 7, 8, would you remember them? No. But if I tell you 3, you're going to remember them. And for me, we teach a lot of stuff. We teach. But to a certain extent, when we teach, within that teaching, what are the 3 things we really want to emphasize? Mm-hmm. And this is what has to come across to your players.
So if you were talking about, in looking at that, what would be your 3 bullet points or broad themes defensively?
No, really, we have a first thing is defensive set off our offense, and then we talk about our principles defensively, and then our rebounding. I always used to be a no middle team, but just because of the time factor, we don't have it. We play straight up, and we keep it pretty simple. We have different pick and roll defenses that we change during the game, but we have one really that we go into,
right?
And really it's about taking away spots on the defensive end and playing one-on-one defense, which is our base. Everyone thinks, well, pick and roll defense is your base. Yes, it is part of your base, but one-on-one defense is really a base because you're working on closeouts all the time, different things.
Yes.
That's the first line of defense, basically, the one-on-one defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's clearly, and that's what, I think a lot of coaches are preaching. It's like your help defense is there, and rotations are important, but, you can't rotate every defensive possession. So when you were talking about no middle, so most coaches would identify that as sideline base push. And you're discussing about getting a little bit more straight up. Does that mean you would just get a little bit more broad and wide in your stance?
Yeah, we don't focus so much on rotations. Rotations give players an excuse to get beat. Mm-hmm. We only rotate in certain situations, and so we don't go through a lot of different rotations. If we trap in the post, obviously we rotate. We play pick and roll defense 2-on-2 for the most part. We stay out of rotations. Mm-hmm. We want to stay out of long closeouts. We want to stay out of rotations.
Right.
And and that's why I've always been no middle, but just because the time factor, we're playing straight up. And obviously there's certain times where we get beat, but we do work on those, mm-hmm. on how we come with our help in certain situations. But mm-hmm. But a lot of times we're trying to play one-on-one. We're trying to play ball screens 2-on-2, yeah. And but we're in help position in case we need to help, so to speak.
Right.
I think it's very funny because I see a lot of youth coaches who are focusing or spending a lot of time in their practices working on rotations and help side and stuff, and not spending basically no time on their one-on-one defense. So it's a total opposite of what you say right now. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think, for me, youth coaching is pretty interesting. Why work on rotations with youth kids? I mean, I see some youth programs, like you said, you got to work on one-on-one defense, huge key. And I see some youth teams running 7, 8 different plays. I get, I would never let a youth program run more than 3 plays. I would never let it. Mm-hmm. To a certain extent, it's so easy to teach plays. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing is trying to teach players how to play.
Yeah.
And find the details and the options to score, and not go through it like a choreography, like a dance routine, and play it all the way through. But find the step-ins and the gaps and react to the defense.
I think that's what we're talking about. Like it's really about attaching the skill, and obviously there's some mechanical skills that are necessary, but then it's attaching the skills to decision making. So, because if kids can't make the right reads and make the right decisions against sort of random situations, and that's where I feel that when I get around and look at practices and youth practices, that coaches aren't spending enough time with this. They'll add far too many constraints. I think the players learn from doing. So it's interesting, Gordie, that I think it's a great thing. I think you have to be doing things one-on-one offense, one-on-one defense. I think you have to be having a lot more of this one-on-one play and get competitive with it in each of your practices.
Yeah, we don't even teach plays. We teach offensive concepts before we teach plays. We put all our offensive concepts in 4-on-0, 5-on-0, and then we put in our plays. Mm-hmm. So, and our philosophy offensively is, yes, we run organized stuff, but when we have advantage, now we're out of it, and now we're playing with concepts.
Yeah.
And, and getting back to the youth question, I see youth teams playing 5-on-5. One kid or two kids touch the ball, three kids never touch the ball.
Exactly.
Youth should be 3-on-3, should be 4-on-4. Yep. 2-on-2, different things, 1-on-1.
Great teaching template, isn't it? 3-on-3. Yeah.
At what age do you think they should switch to 5-on-5?
I think that depends on their skill level, different things. Obviously, at some age they should. I really couldn't give for me to say I would know the exact age. I really can't give you an answer on that.
Yeah, but some of the youth players, they can't even give a good pass, let alone find the open player. So it's basically useless to have them play 5-on-5. Huh?
Well, we need to teach fundamentals, and we even get players at the pro levels that passing's a lost art, and that's why we teach offensive concepts, and that's all I would do with a junior program: teach offensive concepts, of which works on spacing and angles and passing the basketball.
Yeah, and that's my memory of working with you, Gordie, and then being in other environments that, and working in concepts and and breaking things down in small groups and big groups, and then combining those two groups in either 3-on-0 or 3-on-3 or 4-on-0 and 4-on-4. It allows, there's not enough mechanical repetition of all these different decision makings and the passing mechanics that go involved in this. So I think creating ways to would you agree that creating ways to give more repetition in these things is very important?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think we spend too much time on 5-on-0 and different things. Obviously, you have to do it at the pro level, but repetition builds.
Yeah. Okay. So that actually segues nicely into the next block of questions. So obviously, we know it's challenging. It's a short period of time as you go into a window situation, either it being a couple games or one qualification game or a high level tournament. So let's say in 6 or 7 day window week, and you're centralizing, can you talk to us a little bit about how you introduce your systems, and maybe just talk about the practice template?
Yeah, basically, what I do now, I did very little, if not anything, 5-7 years ago. To a certain extent, in this job or any job, the landscape's changing all the time. To a certain extent, we have to recreate ourselves. It doesn't matter what we're doing in life or coaching or different things. When I start a window, we only have 2.5 days of practice before we play. And I still teach offensive concepts before I put in plays. And we spend at least a day and a half on the offensive end before we even get to the defensive stuff, because it takes longer to get your offensive things in. I used to do the exact opposite when I started coaching. And so we do offensive concepts, 4-on-0, 5-on-0. We work against any pick and roll defense, 5-on-0, what we're doing, exactly what we're doing. And then we put in 3 plays. That's it. And then big on special situations. We got baseline 2 seconds. What are we doing? We have to know this. We can't be in a situation where we take a timeout all the time. And then we put in our defensive system. Very simple. We score, we're here. We miss, we're here. And this is what we're doing in the half-court defense. Real simple. And to a certain extent, we don't have much time to get it. We got to keep it simple, stupid. And to a certain extent, you got to say, what 2 or 3 things do you want to do great?
Yeah.
You can't do everything great.
Yes. That's excellent. Okay. So in terms of your resources, so I'm not quite sure how many assistant coaches you have on staff, but let's say you have 3 or 4 assistant coaches on court. Do you divide roles and responsibilities based on, obviously, a lot of coaches don't have the opportunity to have those kind of resources, but like at your level of organization, obviously you can choose people that are specialists. Do you designate one guy, let's say, for offense, one guy for defense, one guy for those special teams you were mentioning, and maybe one guy for, quality control of practice?
Yeah, we have 3 assistant coaches, and we have one person who does analytics and video, helps out in that area. And the assistant coaches do video, and they alternate scouts, and they all have one assistant coach is more responsible for defense, the other for offense. And the third one is kind of he takes care of a lot of little things. Yeah. And he kind of works in between these guys a little bit and be with me. So that's how we break down the video afterwards. The coaches dealing with the offense would have our offensive video, and coaches dealing with the defense would have our defensive video. Right. So that's how we deal with it. And coaches have a big part in practice. We do a lot of group things where we have three different groups rotating and going through things when we're teaching things. So I try to give the coaches a lot of responsibility in practice that they're doing things.
And did you have that?
Our coaches meetings? Our coaches meetings are actually a lot longer than our practices. And
yes.
In our coaches meetings, we have the philosophy. We go in there. We can agree or disagree. Yeah. I like coaches who have an opinion. I like coaches who are creative. I like coaches who can think outside the box a little bit. Yep. And that's what we do in the room. But when we come out, we're a team. To a certain extent, if we're not a team, how can we expect the players to be a team?
Right.
So that's the kind of thing we do.
So the guys that you have right now in your coaching staff, were they in from the first day that you started with Germany, of course, but even before that, is that like a group that you always take with you wherever you go?
Two of them have been there since day one. The other ones have changed because of maybe their role with their own club or team, and they couldn't come. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 different coaches in that area, just depending on the situation, like in the windows. And some coaches can't come in the windows because of their team situation. Or we have one coach who's from the NBA, and obviously he can't come in the windows.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
But
yeah. So just want to kind of shift into the next sort of block topic. So we've already talked a little bit about player development in the previous blocks, but so for you, Gordie, like when does player development actually begin? I remember my reflections is the big thing is just the buy-in of the player. So there's an element of, obviously when you're dealing with pros, players should have a lot of intrinsic motivation. But if we're talking about, youth players, that intrinsic motivation is obviously important to accept, the correctives, accept the feedback, and so that they can get busy with the things that are actually going to help them with their deficit. So how do you tap into the individual psyche of the player individually and develop that trust and connective bond?
Yeah, for me, it starts from, if you start in the preseason, it starts from day one. If we start in the preseason, we say three things. We're working on offensive concepts, we're working on one-on-one defense, we're working on player development. That's how we start the preseason, and that goes for about 10 days. We don't get into any really different things. But for me, player development starts in the summertime, right after the season, with the players you have. I bring them in. I talk to them a little bit. I have them fill out a form. I want to get their insight. Mm-hmm. And, to a certain extent, our being as players depends on three things: nature, nurture, and the investment we make in our own self-development. Yep. The third one we can control. Mm-hmm. So, and I want to hear what they think they need to work on. And mm-hmm. usually it's the same when I make them think, and then it's usually the same things I go through. We talk about basketball skills, physical, mentally, different skills, and but I want them to think about this too, and them to make, what do they think they need to work on in their own self-development, and then we go forward. Yep. And for me, individual skill development is huge because, one, it gives them more confidence. Mm-hmm. You can be much more successful in individual practice than you can in a team practice. Yep. And two, it gives you a chance to develop a much better relationship with them. For sure.
And do you implement your assistant coaches in that too, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the assistant coach, I would oversee it, but I take care of, I do some of the individual work myself, but my assistant coaches do most of it actually. Okay. And but I will do some too, because it gives me a chance to interact with the players in a different way than a team practice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this is all planned out with coaches and physical coaches and different things, and then a lot of times we'll split into groups of this coach has 3 players, another coach has 3 players, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was my reflection. That's what I remember about the experience in Frankfurt with you. It was like, I remember the first meeting, it was like, okay, how can we make these individual players better? Like, and so if each of those 3 players, or if 3 coaches, have the responsibility of, say, 4 players, so then they're obviously, using the resource of video to sit down with them so they can get a visual of the correctives, or also of their strengths, because I think it's important to, pump the wheels up of players. So are you having the players, you're dividing the responsibility with players with each of your assistants?
Yeah, with the national team, because we have 3 assistant coaches, every coach has 4 players. And team videos, we use contrast. We might show 1 negative and 3 positives, how we did stuff. Yep. And it's same with the individuals. And we might show where they didn't do things well, and show things where they did well. Yes. So it's always, we work in contrast, and to a certain extent, and we try to be honest with them, straightforward. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it's visual. We see in pictures. Telling them is not enough nowadays. You got to tell them, and you got to show them a picture.
Absolutely.
And of course, you're working with some top players, best of the world. Is it hard to find areas for them to improve in? Do they come up with that themselves, or how does that work?
It's funny. The great players want to get better. Mm-hmm. And they're very open to things they need to do better.
That's their main focus.
They want to get better.
That's their main focus.
They want to get better. So they usually they're very, very open to players who don't want to get better. who blame others for them not getting better are the toughest ones to deal with, because they don't take this very good.
Yeah, because I've had some discussions with them about players and their mentality. Some players are looking for more. How can I gain more time on the court? The question that they should be asking is, how can I get better? And the other thing will follow automatically. Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of times it's the process and working. It's for me, it's a huge. What are you doing for your self development?
Right. I think the thing is that, and it's the one thing that I remember. Years ago we had a discussion, Gordie, and you were like, one of the themes of in the coaching meetings was like, okay, how can we get these guys better? That was kind of an ongoing thing, and it's like, and the idea of like we can help. We're here to help the players with their mistakes, but not with their excuses. So not packing a parachute for soft landings, and then and with this, obviously, helping the players take more accountability and more buy into their own personal growth and development. So that's the one thing that it really stuck with me.
Yeah, no, we set high standards, and the one great thing about this national team was, yes, we had high standards, but players within the group held each other accountable too. Yeah. And so that really made this work. One, and two, they really cared about each other. Not only did they make a commitment, but they cared about each other. And but they held it made my job a lot easier, that when players hold each other accountable and themselves accountable,
yes,
it goes a long way.
Yes. Well, we really this was quite an efficient discussion, and it brings me kind of like, I think it brings us to the end here. But what I wanted to do, because it was interesting you talking about the allotted time that you were emphasizing on offense to defense, and that maybe that shifted a little bit philosophically for you. So indeed, I think good offense is the foundation of good defense. So what I wanted to do, Gordie, and it might be interesting for the listeners and the coaches, is to unpack your idea about what the offensive 24-second possession is. So, and I mean, a lot of coaches have the same terminology, or basically it's the same thing, but might have a little bit different terminology. So if we're looking at 3 times 8 seconds, so the first 7 to 8 seconds, you would consider that pace or fast break, or how would you unpack and discuss your first 8 seconds in your offensive possession?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, it depends how much talent you have. Okay, we run our fast break we call attack break, and then we have half court offense. The more talent you have, we do run a secondary break. But the problem with the secondary break is, to me, is you go from the attack break to the secondary break too early without attacking. Mm-hmm. So we do it a little bit different. We talk about the first 5-6 seconds is an attack break situation. Mm-hmm. After that, we're either into a flow offense or we're into a half court set, and a lot of times we want to go from one side to the other, mm-hmm. unless we have something great. Mm-hmm. And we really stressed after Eurobasket 2 things: scoring more off our attack break and offensive rebounding. And for me, offensive rebounding is a lot like an attack break. After we get an offensive rebound, we got a quick putback, or we're going to turn, swing the ball, and we got 3 seconds to try to get something, an uncontested 3. And right. Then if we don't have that, then we set it up. Right. So we're always in an attack mode or a control mode, so to speak.
So fast and control.
Well, we're either fast, we're in attack mode, or we're in a control mode. Right. And then when we have an advantage, we get into an attack mode out of the control mode. Right. So those are we talk about 2 speeds a lot. and and then the last 8 seconds of a shot clock, or we talk about last 5 seconds a lot.
Penetration.
Now we're trying to get the ball to the rim.
Yeah.
For a huge thing in everything we do offensively is getting paint touches.
Yep.
And defensively, it's the exact opposite.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You talked about the offensive rebound. Do you have certain rules for that? Can everybody go for it, or is it certain positions? I stole Tom's question. We were preparing this, so sorry, Tom.
That's no problem. Yeah. So I mean, basically, how much time? Like obviously, when you're scripting these concepts, do you go from the completion of your script 5-on-0 or maybe 4-on-0 to what you're doing in terms of rebounding positions or quadrants, and then your reaction and sprint back? Can you talk a little bit about like your philosophy about who goes, who doesn't go? Because you look at analytics, and this is something that I see that has changed quite a bit, is like you see a lot of teams were like, okay, well, maybe we're just going to send one guy or two guys and everyone else, and we're getting 5 players under the level of the ball for fear of like, that pace and that fast break, or that 4 or 5 seconds of a team breaking out on you. But actually analytics show that the more players, the extra player that you send gives you a 12 to maybe even a 15% chance of getting a second possession. So have analytics played a factor in how many people you send now, or is that just a personnel sort of thing?
No, when we put in our 4-on-0 offensive concepts, we also talk about our offensive rebounding, and we talk about the beginning of our defensive transition. So when a shot goes up, we rebound everybody below foul line extended. Doesn't matter if you're a point guard or this and that. And for me, one of the biggest things offensive rebounding is rebounding out of the corners.
Yeah.
And going through the elbows. And the one situation is the 4 could be up at the high slot. We say if it's a slot shot from the other slot, he does not go, because there's a flyby situation. Yep. But if this 4-man's a good offensive rebounder and there's a shot from the corner, he has the option to go. But if you're going to go 100% or don't go. And that's how we get that's our offensive rebounding. And that's how we start our defensive transition. The players in the slots are the key for getting back in our defensive transition. So, I mean, to me, this is black and white, and this is what we do from day one when we put in our offensive concepts.
So when you're in the corners and there's a shot taken from either the opposite side of the floor, whether it be a slot or from the other 45 or corner, what does the offensive player in the opposite corner, so is he reacting and sprinting back to that ball side elbow, or is he just back? Is he just straight back?
No, if we shoot from the slot, we're offensive rebounding. Yeah. We don't. I like to get 3 guys on the offensive boards. Sometimes you might only have 2.
Right. But ideally 3.
Right. Offensive rebounding changes the games. Scoring off your defense changes games, and so we focus a lot on offensive rebounding. That's one of our keys. Is in our any video session, one of our themes we go through. And for me, it's just an attitude. It's an effort play. It's an attitude.
So it's bonus time.
Well, a lot of shots bounce out and go through the elbows. So even the corner guys, we say if you're not going to get to the rim, you got to go through the elbow.
Go there.
Now we have a chance to run down an offensive rebound.
Long one. Yep.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised if I hear this conversation, because most coaches that I've worked with and that I speak with are very defensive minded. And I think maybe that comes a little bit out of fear of wanting to win, a little bit out of fear, where you say now you start with the offense and you put a lot of emphasis on the offensive rebound, which is basically starting for creating opportunity. So I think it's really cool that at that level that you work like this. It's not what I'm used to hearing.
Well, and it's interesting that like everyone's fearful of the bust out and the breakout, but like, you know, if again, I think the more people that go, then you know you're forced to tag, and even if you don't get the offensive rebound, you're attached to a player that has the ball, so you're right on the ball, so you smother. So actually, you don't get as many dangerous breakout situations as you might think. I remember having a conversation with JD about Popovich's philosophy about this, and you know, and this was going back to their dynasty years, and when Duncan and Kawhi were there, and he said that, you know, Duncan went every time, and he said, like what you said a little bit, Gordie, that Kawhi, whether he was in those slot positions, he had the freedom to choose. Like he didn't want to take his like instincts to be able to go, because he's so good at that, but everyone else was back. So it's interesting how much that has, you know, that's changed over, let's say, 8 or 10 years.
Yeah, we love corners, but when a shot goes up, the worst thing you can do is stand in the corner. And even if you go run through the elbow, you're going to get back.
Yep.
You're moving, you're going to get back. I don't like tagging. It's just me. I mean, Tuomas Isalo from Bonn, and now he's in Paris, does a great job with it, and they teach it. For me, it just gives guys a chance to hang around. I think if you do it, you have to really be. I mean, you have to do it. He worked on it for 2 years, and he did it great in Bonn. But I've seen some teams try to copy it in the German league, and it doesn't look good.
Right.
So for my philosophy is we score, we have a pickup point. If we miss, we're back inside the 3-point line, and then we build. It's really simple. We're not hanging around. We're moving.
Right.
And so, I mean, but I love our guards rebounding. Guards don't box out defensively. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I really like our guards rebounding, and they're very capable. They're much more capable of running down long offensive rebounds.
Right. Right. Well, you know, this has been a great conversation, and I think maybe the best way to end it is by just asking you now, leading into Paris, like what are the goals and the ambitions after the results of the World Championships?
After Eurobasket 2022, we said, you know, we said 3 things we need to improve on, and now after this World Cup, we'll go into next summer the same thing. We're going to come up with 3 things we need to improve on. We can't be satisfied where we are. We got to understand if we want to medal or in Paris, we're going to have to get better. And the whole thing is what things are we going to emphasize to get better? And to me, to a certain extent, it's like, you know, are we climbing up the mountain, or we're going to be on the beach? And we've got to keep climbing. We got to keep moving. And but that's our job as coaches. And and if we just go in like say we're not going to get better, we're just going to do this and this, we won't reach the podium.
Yeah, well, you got targets now. You're in the crosshairs, right? So with that, I guess it gives you an impetus for everyone. It sounds like the chemistry and the resolve is on a high level, and lots of confidence. So it's going to be a fun challenge.
Yeah, we didn't have our best defensive guard last summer either, with Wyatt or Bab being injured. So he's our best defensive guard, and we did not have him. But basically, I see us having the same team. We cut Leon Gratzer just before the tournament, and he was probably the best 5-man in the German league last year. He deserved to be on the team. It was just a matter of numbers and what we needed to have. So, you know, I could see maybe 1 or 2 players changing, and it all depends on who's healthy, who's not healthy, and going from there.
Mm-hmm. And so if you were to project now, and you know, who would you see the top 3 teams? Obviously, you'd put yourself in there, but who do you see? And obviously, other teams are going to have rosters are going to be a little bit different. They're going to be a little bit stronger, or maybe they're going to be a little bit weaker, depending on, you know, what happens with injury and who's available and all of this. But like, how do you see how do you see the podium right now if you were to project?
It's tough to say three. Slovenia is going to be a lot tougher with Jokic there, and a couple other guys were missing. Australia didn't even make it to the top 8, and they had 9 NBA players at the World. Canada might, they didn't have Murray. They might be stronger with Murray. Mm-hmm. So France will be much stronger. Yeah, and more focused. Mm-hmm. United States obviously will be good. It doesn't really matter who they send. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I see a group of at least 6, maybe 7 teams that could reach the podium, and it comes down to that quarterfinal game. There's where you make it or break it into the semifinals. So
you talked about the difference of coaching a club and now a country. How do you see the end of the Olympics will be the end of the 3-year period that you talked about? How do you see it for yourself? Do you like this, or working like this, or do you want to coach a club again, or want to go to the NBA? How do you see the future for yourself?
No, before the Worlds, I signed a 2-year extension.
Oh.
Federation said they didn't really like the numbers. After the Worlds, they said they really like the numbers now. Yeah. But I've had an offer to go to the EuroLeague already, and I've had another phone call the other day. But I have a 2-year contract, but really this 3-year commitment kind of is over after the Olympics. These guys have done a tremendous job, and it's been really an honor to coach them. But it's tough. Even a guy like Franz Wagner, who's only 22 years old, it's tough for him to spend 3 summers in a row, more than 3 summers playing. He might take a year off or 2 years off. Yeah. And I think some of these other guys might take a year or 2 off too. And maybe, so it's tough. I'm really not going to get into it with the players. I mean, I just want them to finish this 3rd year, and we've had a great 2 years. Let's finish it up. Yep. But I don't expect a lot of these players to keep playing. The Eurobasket is next, and they've done Eurobasket. Then there's a year without anything. So it means some of these guys might not do this for 2 years, but they might come back for the Worlds. Yeah. But we have a young group coming that's pretty good. A young group that did not make this 3-year commitment, that did not make this team. So I think the future is bright for Germany. Myself, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. If this at the end of the 3 years I'm finished, or I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're going to have options. So, as long as you're still walking, that you won't be walking in a walker. How are you doing physically now?
Doing great. I mean, actually, this job's been tremendous for me. I don't have to wear and tear every day. I go swimming in the morning or go to the fitness room, show up at the office for 1 or 2 hours, go home, go Nordic walking, watch games, talk to people. So it's actually, the job's been really, at my age, the job's been great. Yeah. And especially, dealing with these players has just been outstanding. Just a special group of individuals who, want to represent their country. It's been really special.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say it's been a pleasure to speak with you, and obviously we're going to have some conversations like outside of this. But thanks so much for taking the time to speak to me and speak to off season today, Gordie.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
See you soon, Gordie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.